Hello everyone, and welcome to Debonair Cyber. My name is Devin, and I wanted to make today's video because I passed the PNPT. I'm super excited about it, and I want to share my experience, the things that I kind of went through, the things that were easy for me, the things that were not so easy for me, in hopes that I can help you do the exact same thing. I want to help you pass the PNPT. So with all of that, let's get started. So I want to take a second here before we get too far into the video and talk about my knowledge and experience in cybersecurity so far. I graduated with a bachelor's in cybersecurity information assurance from Western Governors University in November of 23. Shortly after that, I landed a job in cybersecurity as an IT security analyst, and I've been in that job for a little over a year now. So I would definitely say that my knowledge and experience over the last year of my work has played into this, earning this certification in a pretty significant way. However, I really don't think that having that job experience is necessary to earn the certification, if that makes sense. I do think that anyone who is determined enough can come into the PNPT and be fully prepared to pass the exam when the time comes. So now that we've talked a little bit more about what my knowledge and experience is, I want to answer the question, what is the PNPT? The PNPT is a real-world penetration testing exam experience, according to TCM. You'll have 5 full days to complete the assessment and an additional 2 days to write the report. So what that means is whenever you actually start your exam, you will be given a full 5 days from the time that you actually start the exam. So like if you start at 9 a.m., you'll be given a full 5 days from that point, and then the additional 2 after that. So a total of 7 days for a complete exam attempt if you need all of that time. So you can also see on the side over here that you have 1 exam attempt and 1 free retake, meaning that it is possible for you to fail the exam once and then come back and retake it, which is, spoiler alert, exactly what I had to do. So here we can see how to actually pass the PNPT exam. This is what they expect for you to actually do in the exam. So they want for you to perform an OSINT investigation to gather intel on how to properly attack the network. You want to leverage your Active Directory exploitation skill sets to perform AV and egress bypass, lateral and vertical network movements, those types of things, and then ultimately compromise the exam domain controller, after which you will provide a detailed, professionally written report. Assuming that you actually pass the report successfully, will be expected to perform a 15-minute debrief. Overall, I feel like the structure of this exam was really perfect. It really honestly felt like work, but in the best way possible, if that makes sense. Like, it actually felt like from the time I pressed go on the exam until the time that I actually did my debrief, that I was on a pen test engagement the entire time. And of course, all of this wrapped into a package of $500, I feel is, like I said, with all of the training that is included, the exam experience, and I mean everything that as a total package, well worth the $500, especially if you have the real life hack and you can get your employer to pay for the certification. So moving on from there, I want to talk a little bit more about how I prepared for the exam. I want to talk about how it did actually take me 2 attempts to get through this exam, and what I did differently between my first and second attempts. So firstly, I want to talk about why the PNPT, right? I do feel like the PNPT has a certain reputation at this point. There are a handful of exams that if you look on anywhere online, right, any Discord server, that type of thing, people are talking about OSCP, they're talking about CPTS, and they're talking about PNPT most of the time for your like entry-level type hacking certifications, right? But with me in my particular situation, kind of being new to the hacking scene, having a little bit of experience with blue team stuff, decided that the CPTS was a little bit above my current skill set. So I decided that the PNPT would be a very comparable kind of sidestep. I do plan to eventually get the CPTS, but that was kind of my thought process at the time. So in terms of the actual coursework for the PNPT, they do give you the practical ethical hacking course. There are 2 courses for privilege escalation, one for Windows and one for Linux. There is the OSINT course, and then finally you also have the external pen test playbook. My recommendation for these courses, strictly in terms of preparing for the PNPT, I would focus mainly on the practical ethical hacking course. This is going to have the blueprints for the entire exam baked in. If you don't have a lot of experience with performing OSINT investigations, definitely go through the OSINT course. That course is actually essential to passing the exam. And then my third recommendation, of course, would be for the external pen test playbook. This one gives some very good insights about the actual report writing, some very common findings that you may expect to see on engagements, and overall more of a broader methodology, I would say, in terms of how to perform an external penetration test. When it comes to my studying methodology, I do want to point out that it is essential that you take notes during the courses. Heath talks about it. It's one of the very first things that is covered in the practical ethical hacking course, and it will save you later. You're going to forget syntax. You're going to forget that specific command or what to do next. You don't want to be scrambling and trying to find that type of information when you're in the middle of the exam. Go ahead and take the notes, have them all in one place. Do them on something like Notion, like OneNote, Cherry Tree, I think is the one that he uses in the actual exam. Something, whatever you're most comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable with anything, great, start now, because I promise that will pay off dividends in the future. And I even have another video on the channel right now that talks about how using write-ups and taking your own notes through your hacking will save you so much time in the future. In terms of the actual practical part of the study, you do need to go through and actually build the lab yourself. Heath walks you through every step, but it is also, it helps a lot to actually go through the process of having your own issues with putting these things together. There are other people, not only the troubleshooting that happens in the course, but also there are other people in the Discord. If you're not in there, you can go and join the TCM Discord, and many people there are willing and able to help. It's very active. You can post just about any time of the day and somebody's going to try to help you out. That is a really good resource for actually getting the help that you need on any aspect really of the practical ethical hacker course, or any other course. They have them split up that way for each separate course. But going through and building those labs gives you a more holistic understanding of what the vulnerabilities are that you're actually looking for, not just how to test for them, but what is the root cause of the vulnerability, right? Because you're building it to be vulnerable. This step in particular will pay off very much when it comes to the report writing, where you have to make a recommendation based on the findings that you have throughout the exam time, because you had to build it vulnerable. You have to know how to fix it, right? Apart from building the lab yourself and going through that experience, there are a number of other machines that are actually listed in the Linux and Windows privilege escalation courses that I think really showcase a lot of the vulnerabilities that they highlight in the practical ethical hacker course. And that kind of mindset that Heath tries to walk you through are very well established in those boxes. There is one concept in the PEH that I feel is a little bit difficult to practice, and it's just from a networking perspective. They don't really teach you how to set this thing up. They kind of go through it and say, okay, this is how it's performed, right? But that is pivoting. And getting access to an actual network can be kind of challenging to do on Hack the Box. They do exist, but they can be quite expensive and even quite difficult to work your way through, honestly. But there is a network on TryHackMe called Wreath that is specifically built. We can make this a little bit bigger, maybe. Well, too big. But there is a network on TryHackMe called Wreath that is built specifically to learn how to pivot through a network by compromising public-facing web machine. So this Wreath room is definitely one that I would recommend if you need practice with tunneling. There are many tools that are listed in the PEH. All of them are viable. There are also some tools that are not listed in the PEH that are also viable, something like Legolo I've heard a lot about. This would be a perfect place to practice all of those methods. I do just want to point out, though, that although those methods exist, don't feel the need to go out there and try to, reinvent the wheel, right? I personally used the tools and methods that they taught in the PEH and came out completely fine. And finally, if I had one last recommendation for what to actually focus on in your study, you know it, you love it, everybody talks about it. The Active Directory portion is going to be the lion's share of both the PEH and the exam. It can be a little bit daunting, but taking good notes and having a solid methodology, a solid testing checklist to go, okay, every time I land on a machine, every time I discover a new machine, these are the steps that I'm going to take to make sure you're not missing anything. It's super, super easy to treat this like a CTF when you get in there and say, oh, well, I see this vulnerability, I'm going to jump exactly on that thing. And you can get lost very quickly after even 3 days of testing, saying, did I do that on that first machine? Did I do it on the second one? Okay, what about the third one? Right? So as you're going through, you need to not only document this process, going back to the very beginning of this video, right, where we talked about note taking and that kind of thing, but also documenting each step you're taking along the way. And having that checklist can keep you solid and keep you rooted in that foundation of, it's cool to get excited when you find that vulnerability, I understand, and we all go through that, but having some restraint when it comes to that kind of thing and not jumping on the very first thing you find. Enumerate. He says it so many times, and it truly is the foundation of this exam. All right, finally, it is exam day, right? So what do you need to know from here? When you first click on your starting your exam attempt, you will get a rules of engagement document. I think Heath is very clear in the PEH course. I'll say it here again. Pay very much attention to this document. Okay, this is your Bible for the next 5 days. Seriously, take the time to sit down and read this document word for word. You have 5 days. You have plenty of time to sit down and read through this and make sure you understand it from the top to the bottom. I'm not going to go into any real specifics about necessarily the exam structure here or anything like that, so sorry to burst your bubble if you're expecting that. But I do want to go through some general experiences that you are going to have and kind of how to work your way through those things. So they say in their own materials that you will get stuck at some point. You will find yourself kind of hitting a wall, feeling like you're doing the same things over and over again and those types of things. At that point, you are very well overdue for a break. Take a step away, 20, 30 minutes, maybe even if you're getting to that point, drink some water, go for a walk, clear your head, and then try to come back later. Going through this process and trying the same things over and over again, it feels very desperate after a while. Speaking from experience, I mentioned before, but I did actually have to take the test for a second time. I hit that wall. On the third day, I could not figure out a way forward from where I was. And it was one of the most frustrating experiences to sit there for another 2 days kind of banging my head against the wall and feeling so stuck and so disappointed. But at the end of the day, it is, again, very important to take breaks from those situations. Another very important thing is to pay attention to the output of your tools. Run them in verbose. Take the time to actually read all of the output from all of your tools that you're running. You have to know what that tool is telling you in order, a lot of times, to actually move forward. I know this seems like such a simple thing, right? And put those outputs in your notes so that you can refer back to them later and say, okay, well, maybe I missed something here, and you're not having to scramble through and try to, again, figure out, because you will lose track of what you've run against which systems if you're not doing this methodically, if you're not doing the exact same thing on every single machine you come up against. I promise. And again, I know it seems like such a silly thing to have to point out in a video, but read the output of your tools. I can't tell you how many times that I was stuck on these 1 or 2 hour rabbit holes, when really, if I would have just actually paid attention to the output, it would have saved me a lot of time. Probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I received when I was actually taking the exam, and I think they've actually pointed this out on their videos since then, is you have an entire 5 days to do this engagement. If you seriously get stuck, you can watch the entire PEH course on like 1.5 times speed a couple times over through this exam time. Okay, you have time to actually research and go back, look at your notes because you took them, right? But go back, look at your notes, look through the actual PEH course, look through some of the other courses if you feel like you need to. You have time. Breathe and go back. Now, probably my biggest piece of advice that I can give you when it comes to exam day, if you run a tool that gets you further into the environment, take a screenshot of that thing. Take a screenshot of everything you find, from the minute you start the ROE until the minute you are in your reporting phase. Every single thing you do, take a screenshot. He talks about it in the PEH on how to actually take quality screenshots. He even talks about how if you don't want to do all of the fancy inversion and pointing out with the squares and everything else, that's fine too. But you must take screenshots for the report. That's all I'm going to say. So getting close to the end here, we'll talk about the report for just a minute. I think this, the time allotted, this 2-day period, is very fair in terms of actually getting the report done, especially given the fact that they actually give you a template in the PEH course. It's even on their like public website, right? But if you're using their template to go through your report and actually give the recommendations, give all the steps with screenshots, every step with screenshots. Seems silly, but you'll thank me later. But to actually go through with their template and mark down the vulnerabilities you found, the possible remediations, and maybe even some references like they do in their template, like give some NIST recommendations, that kind of thing, right? I don't feel like this was necessarily a difficult part, right? It's kind of a tedious thing to sit down and document all this stuff, but ultimately at the end of the day, this is the deliverable to the client. This is something that they get to hold in their hands and take into the future, and this is your true value. The test itself, sure, that's the fun part, we all love doing that, but at the end of the day, the insights and the actionable intel that you put into the report are the value that you bring to that organization. That is what they paid for. So really the emphasis on a professionally written report that they put on the on their marketing page for PNPT, I think that's a very valuable thing that you can get out of this, is how to actually do that before the stakes are high, right? And finally, really quickly, the debrief. Once you have actually successfully compromised the domain, you have passed your report, they will schedule a debrief with you, and they will ask you to run down the vulnerabilities that you found very quickly. Obviously 15 minutes is not very long. I have talked much longer than that recording this video. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, right, because it is an exam and it's kind of high stakes, but at the end of the day, you've already written the report, you understand all the vulnerabilities, and you really are just conveying that out loud to someone over a video call. If you have made it that far into the exam, you should have confidence that that what you are telling the client right at that point is factual and real. And maybe they might have one or two other questions that you should be expected to know in, like, from the PEH material, or from, I guess, really any of the other materials. Fair game, right? But go into this debrief with the confidence of knowing that you have made it that far into the process. So that means that you have compromised the domain and your report was good. All they really need to know is that you can deliver that 15-minute debrief with a client on the report that you've already written. And in my case, I just used the report that I had already written and just read down all of my findings. It can really be that simple. Overall, I think the PNPT is an excellent experience from top to bottom. The training was great. I loved the structure of all of their videos. I think the practical aspects of all those videos and all that training was phenomenal. I think that Heath does a great job not only explaining the technical side of things and where these vulnerabilities lie, how to find them, how to exploit them, but also the methodology that he instills throughout the entire course is extremely valuable, not only in the exam environment, but going beyond that as well. And you don't hear any one piece of advice from Heath just one time. There are multiple times that he is saying over and over again the exact same concepts. Enumerate, right? And again, I've said already in this video that this exam feels like work in the best possible way. From the very beginning to the time you receive the rules of engagement document until the time that you give the debrief, it feels like you're at work. It feels like you're doing a 9 to 5 as a pen tester, and I love it. It was so much fun. I would say the biggest takeaway from this journey by far has taught me that methodology is important. Again, I've kind of harped on it a little bit in this video, but you need to have a process. You need to execute that process consistently and across every machine that you come across, right? The smallest thing in both an exam and an actual pen test can mean the difference between a domain compromise and a complete failure. And he even brings that up in some of the case studies at the end of the PEH course as well. I also think that TCM does a great job of actually showcasing when jobs put their certification on a job posting. Even just recently I saw where they posted another job posting that listed the PNPT. So that's great. It means that, first of all, this certification is beginning to be more industry recognized, and that it is valuable in some way. As for me, I think now I'm going to be putting a much bigger focus on moving, I think, toward that CPTS or OSCP route. What are your suggestions, though? Do you have any? Have you taken those exams? Have you taken this one? Maybe drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have made it to this point in the video, I would very greatly appreciate you if you were to like and subscribe. If you feel like you've gotten some value from this, that would be great, and I would love to be able to give you some more value in the future. With all that being said, this video has gone on for quite long enough, so we'll see you next time.